Hello, my name is Daniel, and this is Isabella. We are going to be doing readings throughout the entire week, where it is we're doing our studies. We've got 4 books from the Likkudei, from the Hasidic movement, and they have essentially, so far what we understand, 3 different sections for each parasha. We are going to start on Parasha Beresheet, and then from there we'll end up trying our best to move on each week with one recording, hopefully being able to nail down each of the sections and how it is that the parashas are broken up, because they have certain aspects which it is that they focus themselves on. And we're going to try our best to focus on each one of those and give you the explanation of what's happening with each one, and hopefully kind of dive into it. Maybe there might be a conversation between me and her, kind of getting more into depth with it. So we're going to start with Beresheet, and there are 3 sections to this one. The first one is making Eretz Yisrael our spiritual home, our spiritual inheritance. The second part is going to be a mission of light. And the third part is going to be giving a name, defining a purpose. And that's how it is we're going to go in that manner. So to start off with, making Eretz Yisrael our spiritual inheritance. In this section, the Rebbe Lubavitch does a commentary on the commentaries of Rashi. And making Eretz Yisrael our spiritual inheritance focuses on being able to bring the land of Israel to all of your surroundings. The land of Israel is a spiritual home. They don't deny that, but they're also saying that you can bring the land of Israel where it is that you are at, essentially by transforming the location where you are at into Israel itself, by doing the things and performing the culture that is in Israel.
They also made a comment about the Torah itself, how it starts with the word Bereshit. Why does it start Bereshit? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Is because he is stating ownership. He is establishing that this world is his and it's his creation. And there are few verses along the Torah and the Psalms as well that says that the entire earth is mine. And so the reason why an author starts a book with this passage is to be able to immediately tell you who is the owner of this of the entire creation, pretty much. So that's one thing that I agree with. He establishes ownership of his creation and universe.
They also ended up making a comment, kind of bouncing off what it is that she said, about how it is that, the Father himself owns everything. So he gives ownership to whoever it is that he wants. So if you are a person that is living according to the Torah, you are becoming one with Eretz Yisrael. And because of that, the study of Torah helps you in making the claim that the land of Israel is essentially yours, because you're becoming one with Israel. And in that manner, God himself gives ownership to you. So whereas the other parts of the nations will turn around and say, well, the land of Israel was stolen. Well, no, it wasn't stolen. God simply gives ownership to who it is that he wants.
Yeah, like first, the land of Israel belonged to Shem. Whenever after the flood, Noah gave inheritances to his three children. And Shem, that's why the Jews are called the Semites from the word Shem, was given the land of Israel, which was conquered by Canaan, the brother. And then later, Abraham came and his children and took it back because it was originally theirs. Nowadays, especially today in the present, Israel is sharing the land with the Palestinians, which are the Philistines. And they are saying that the land is theirs, and that's why we have this conflict in the Middle East for this piece of land.
All right. Move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that they wanted to establish, that the land has not been stolen by the Jews, that is the land that was given by God himself to them. Then another part that that something they mention is that whenever you are in the land of Israel, they say that the presence of God is felt more. We personally have not been in Israel. Our desire and one of our goals is to go to Israel and to be able to experience that presence. I've heard many testimonies that it has a different air even to breathe over there. So that's another comment they made on that section.
And hopefully we'll get remarried over there. It's personal hope.
Yes. The other part that I would like to make a comment that I really liked is the part that they said that you can bring Israel to wherever you're at, no matter where you are, you bring Israel to you. And how do we do that? Is by doing the Torah and the laws of the Torah, is how we make any place Israel. And I really like that part, just a personal comment.
And to kind of be able to kind of focus on that one little area. So Israel has its own culture in which it is that it basically the culture was created through the Torah in the first place. And if you'll notice, especially living inside the United States, there are certain areas where it is you can go where I at least I know, at least with the Spanish people, because my wife is Spanish in the first place. But if you go around in those specific areas, they kind of have established their own culture. So it feels very much like you're living the culture of the Spanish people inside of a Spanish area. I mean, they kind of brought their culture over into America and kind of established their own little section. In the same way, is the exact same thing with the Jews. There are different locations where it is that the Jews are set up, and they live in a very tight-knit community. And in those specific communities, they have their own culture. They've established how it is that they are going to live. They have a hierarchy where it is that the people continue to go to. They speak to their rebbes, and they kind of obey essentially the pecking order. And so when you're trying to bring Israel into your location, you want to set up that culture. You want to have the people around you that kind of resemble the same lifestyle which it is that you yourself are trying your best to live.
Yeah. Then they move on to how to conquer this land. Because if we look at the history of the Bible, yes, it was originally given to Shem. Then Canaan conquered it. Then Israel, when they became a nation in Egypt, went out of Egypt and now had to conquer the land. And then they asked the question, how can we conquer our own land? My understanding to this section is that we all have that physical part, our physical soul is that part that we need to conquer, pretty much. they give an example of how we have to conquer and keep and preserve, once we conquer it, our health. And that's something everyone can relate to. How hard is it? But they said, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. If you remember the account of the spies that went to Israel before they conquered it, they brought a report, one positive, one negative. The negative was that it is impossible to conquer it because there's giants, they have 45 walls, cities, and there is no way. They have a military that's well organized, and there's no way to conquer it. And uh, in a way, that was truth. And then the other positive report was that yes, we can conquer it because God is with us. And they speak about that in terms of our health. How is it possible for us to conquer any aspect of our physical surroundings, pretty much?
And to add on more to that, they also speak about how it is that the Rebbe Lubavitch was making a commentary on Rashi's commentary, essentially stating that one of the comments that the spies were essentially making whenever they were making that particular comment, hey, we can't go over there and conquer that, is that basically what they were saying is that we can't go over there and conquer that because God himself has decided for it to be that way. And so they were essentially saying, if we go over and we try our best to conquer that, we are essentially going against God. Instead, what we should do is go back into the wilderness where we don't have to focus on all the mundane aspects of life. We can just focus on Torah over here. And part of the reason why they were saying that is because while they're in the wilderness, essentially God was providing everything. And that's essentially what it is that Rashi, I believe, was trying to make that kind of comparison. That is essentially what was being said without it being said.
One thing I liked about that part, and I think it's true in every one of us, is that because of our circumstances, we allow ourselves to be very comfortable with what's going on. And it's very easy to say, oh, well, things are the way they are. God must want them to be that way. Yes, he wants it to be that way, but he wants you to bring the best out of it. And just a quick testimony to share with you about my niece. She is a person that was always overweight. And since she was a baby, she was born with that structure, a heavy structure. And she tried every diet possible out there throughout her life. And she just got to a point in her life where nothing worked for her. That's the bone structure, that's how I am, and that's how I'm going to be. And she could have just said, this is how God made me, so this is how I'm going to stay. But she had this willpower to be able to push herself, really pushed herself, and decided to change the way she was. And nowadays, you cannot believe that the person that you see was inside of that overweight woman. It's unbelievable, the change that she had. And whenever we were reading this connection, I was just thinking about that. How that person was hidden inside of her, that just needed to move to be able to change the way she is. And I relate a lot to that part with that.
Oh yeah. She changed a lot. I love my niece and everything, but whenever it is that I first met her, I kind of thought that she was pretty much just kind of a lazy person, and that was kind of her personality at that time. But now she has truly developed herself. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's a beautiful woman. Um,
Yeah. All right, moving on. They also talk about the microcosm and the macrocosm. And this part, it's they're pretty much just saying that as it is in heaven is on earth. And I do relate this a lot myself because ever since we have studied Torah, I've understood that the way, if we can understand ourselves, then we can understand God because we are His image. And in that way, uh, you can feel His presence a little bit more. You can relate to Him a little bit more whenever you can understand yourself. Why do I hate? Why do I get angry? Why do I love? Why do I hurt? If He also does feel that, then whenever you read the Torah, you can relate and get more personal with Him. And that's something really changed in the way I see Him now.
yeah. So in kind of bouncing off of that also, the spiritual represents the physical, and the physical represents the spiritual. Anytime that you're trying to figure out more and more about the character of the Father himself, you'll do well to be able to try your best to kind of look inside of what's happening inside of nature itself. Why is nature the way that it is? Why is this tree growing the way that it's growing? Why is the river running the way that it's running? Why do the elements, earth, fire, wind, and water, act in the manner in which it is that they do? If you begin your trying your best to look further and further into a particular part of nature, you'll begin to see that God himself has hidden little tiny aspects of himself inside of each part. It's there, and it's hidden for a purpose, it's hidden for a reason for you to be able to find it. And because we're all kind of playing hide and seek with Father himself, and he's trying to play with you, he's trying to have fun with you, he wants you to seek him out and to get to know him better, and at the exact same time he's wanting you to get to know that part of him that is in you, because he is your Father as well. And just like every child, boy or girl, is made up of both mother and father, you are also made up of a part of the Father himself, and he wants to bring out the best quality of himself in you.
Uh, and then speaking about this concept, they continue on developing more this subject. They ask a question, and they say, why does the Torah starts with Bereshit, with in the beginning? If God wants us to do something, why doesn't he just say this is gonna be the first day or the first month for you, which that's how the first commandment starts in Exodus. And so they ask, why doesn't he go directly to the point? What's with all this introduction of him making this, him making that? If the Torah is all about rules and what to do and what not to do, why doesn't he just jump directly to the commandments? And the reasoning behind that is because he is just like us. When you enter into a relationship with somebody, you don't go directly and say, marry me, without introducing yourself and letting yourself known to the other person. So it is no different for him. So what he is doing in Bereshit, he is introducing himself to the creation and showing his strength, showing all his qualities before he comes to the bride to say, do you want to marry me? Pretty much that's what Bereshit is him letting the creation know, letting himself to the creation, I would say.
You ready to go to the second?
Yeah, and that ends the first part of the commentaries.
Yeah, that was Beresheet 1. We are now going on to Beresheet 2. And this one is called A Mission of Light. In, uh, in Beresheet 2, A Mission of Light, what it's trying to tell you is that God himself, whenever he was getting ready to build everything, create everything, he essentially set a goal. Just like every morning we need to be able to get up, set goals for ourselves. Okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to brush my teeth, shower, shave, put my pants on, go to work, have a good day, and show people, what I'm really made of. Okay? So we ourselves need to also make that kind of goal for ourselves. In the manner of the Father and the goal in which it is that he was creating, he made a huge statement. As a matter of fact, if you try and understand where it is that the explanation is coming from, you would understand how big of a statement it really was, which is, he said, let there be light. Now, it's an interesting concept because you have to remember, day one, he said, let there be light, and there was light. But on day 4, that's when the sun, the moon, and the stars were created. A source of light. So the question becomes, what was this light? Well, essentially, it was the mission statement. He created an abundance amount of light, and he hid it inside of all of his creation. He hid it away. He stowed it away. And he stowed it away for the purpose of, again, you being able to find it. He hid it inside of the Torah itself, which is how it is that we help to reveal the light that he hid away.
I didn't see this part in the past, and whenever we read about it, it really made me think about it. How they want. I mean, throughout my entire life, when reading the Bible, I would always say, what kind of light is this on the first day if the sun and the moon and the stars were created on the 4th day? And I would always question that. Religion has its own explanation, but whenever I read this part, it made so much sense to me that this light it's as if someone would be saying, I want to be happy. What am I going to do to be able to get there? Well, I have to provide myself an existence. I have to work. I have to get me a roof under my head. I have to get me food on my table. All these things, all this bunch of things. I want to get married. I want to have children. That's everything is going to make me happy. And the purpose overall is me to be happy. So that was the same purpose that he called with the first saying, because they say that there was 10 sayings to create the entire world. But that was the first saying, which was the whole purpose of his creation. Now, it sounds a little bit still abstract to say, like, okay, so what is this light still? What is this light that he's talking about?
Well, the light that it is that he's talking about is the actions, the Torah itself. Because inside the Torah, the more and more you perform the actions of the Torah, they draw down his presence into the physical world. So this is how it is that we help to make a big connection with the spiritual and the physical. The more you do the Torah, you are also essentially becoming the Torah itself, which is the Father himself, because the Father put his character, his nature, inside of the Torah. So you are emulating that character, that nature. You are shining his light by performing the actions of the Torah, by emulating him, and by what's the word?
Imitating?
No, by putting his light into the world and essentially saturating your area with the fullness of his presence. The more you do his will, you are calling down the force and the power of his presence into that area. And at the exact same time, you are dispersing the darkness from that area and transforming it.
To break it down more, I think we can understand light, anything that brings life, through life, that brings you fulfillment, not just a temporary fulfillment that we get from the material things. It's a fulfillment that that is there to stay and not to leave. It's that permanent fulfillment. And that comes with life. And the Torah are instructions to show you what brings light and life to you. So anything that brings from eating healthy, exercising, the most mundane thing that you can think of, if that brings life to you, that is light.
And being able to understand what life itself does. Life grows. Life continues to prosper. It doesn't try to kill anything. It only gets rid of the things that is trying to kill it. So life itself continues to grow, prosper, and it does it for a very specific purpose, which is not for itself, but for other people. Because you have to think about, for an example, like, what do fruit trees do? Well, fruit trees grow, they develop, they spread out, and they continue to produce more and more fruit. But they don't produce the fruit for itself. They produce the fruit for you to be able to eat it. And so that way it sustains your life. Not necessarily its own life, but yours. And in the same like manner, that's what it is that the Torah itself does for us. It helps us to begin the process of emulating the Father himself. The Father gives you life, not necessarily for himself, but for you. He provides your needs. He gives you what it is that you need. The things that happen in your life aren't necessarily coincidence. They're there for you, to help to produce you and to make you a better person.
And then they go to, okay, he said, let there be light on the first day. Then they make a comment to that part, and they say that he hid it immediately after creating the light. And you could say, how can you hide that? Well, the way I understand it is that whenever we act selfishly, I'd say is the word, there is no light in our acts that are done with ego. But there is light behind my ego. For example, the light is hidden behind the negative things, behind darkness. It's like the sun goes down and it's hidden by the darkness. But then the sun comes back out and it reveals itself. So how is it that he hid this light from the creation? The way they explain it is that whenever he gave the Torah, he gave us this tool to be able to reveal this light. For example, if he says, don't eat this particular type of animals because they lead you to death, instead eat this, then right there the Torah is revealing you what brings life equals light in a way.
All right, ready to move on to the next?
Let me see. Making a mission statement?
No. Giving a name and defining a purpose.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so the next one is Beresheet 3. This one is called Giving a Name and Defining a Purpose. This one, the idea behind it is relatively simple to be able to understand. But the way in which it is that they kind of explain things, I'm not going to lie, it gets a little bit difficult to understand in certain situations. But what they are talking about is that in the beginning, whenever Adam was created, he was also given the mission to essentially name every animal. In this area, they talk about how it is that, I believe it was Rashi made the commentary about how it is that Adam himself was the only one capable of naming the animals the correct name. And essentially what he was doing was, whenever he was naming each animal, he was essentially pulling from the spiritual source and making a connection with the physical source. So by embedding the name onto that creature, what he was doing is he was pulling down the spiritual source and making a connection to that physical source, because the name is the character of that spiritual source on the physical creature. So, for an example, and this is the example that they give, he was able to call an ox because he pulled from the spiritual angel source of the angel that had the face of an ox. So that would be the connection inside of that creature, the animal soul. He was embedding that name on the animal soul itself, because that was the connection that was being made. And essentially let me get this correct. Your name essentially also has your purpose embedded into it. It is pretty much the case.
Yeah, they speak about how nobody was able to name the animals, not the angels. So Adam was the one that had this knowledge and wisdom to be able to connect the spiritual realm with the material. Because the angels are not made of material matter, they couldn't make that connection to name them. And the Torah says that Adam named them, and so were their name. What's that saying is that the names that he gave them were their true names. In the spiritual realm, he was able to make that connection, to access that. And pretty much the entire part 3 spoke about names. And one thing I really liked about the comments was that, like he said, that the name, when the parents name a child, they are giving divine knowledge and wisdom to be able to name that child. That it is just not a great idea that the parent had, or
It's not a
Well, it
coincidence.
wasn't a coincidence that each one of us were named the way, the whatever we were called, and that in that name, yes, it is our purpose, but it's also our potential. All our potential is contained within our name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that I really liked about that.
So concerning the angels, what they were also saying is that the reason that the angels themselves could not truly grasp or understand or even name the animals is because the angels are spiritual, so they couldn't really understand essentially the physical is the case. But mankind can. Why? Because man is made up of both spiritual and physical. Inside of our bodies, we contain a soul, a spirit, and we also are physical ourselves. So our spiritual selves, our souls, are trying to become better and better people. And in doing so, we obtain more and more life. We're capable of being happier. We're capable of being better than what we currently are, as long as we can get our physical bodies to come under control of the spiritual. Um, Anything else?
Yes, they are talking about how to bring this potential to its fullness, and just I'm gonna go back a little bit to the part two, where we were talking about light. Uh, so in order to be able to conquer darkness, light has to be revealed, and for us to be able to rebuild our true potential, we have to conquer all our negative traits, just in the same way that darkness is dissipated with light. Um, we don't just kick out our bad traits. For example, I get very impatient, and that's a negative trait I have. How can I transform this dark or negative area of mine into light, into goodness, to be able to reach my potential? Is by using this trait that's negative for the good. And that is, for example, being impatient for studying Torah, for helping somebody, for not waiting in helping someone, etc. That's how I transform the negative into positive, and that's how I dissipate the darkness with light, by transforming it. And that's how we reach our true potential as well. That's pretty much what this parasha was about. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that brings all three essentially to an end. That's where it is that we currently are. We'll try our best to do more videos at a later time. We're hoping that this right here really kind of kicks things off for us so that we can begin the process of sharing more and more of what it is that at least we hope we understand, for you. Because we're not doing this for any specific reason except for hoping to kind of spread the word, spread the message, and give you more hope, more happiness inside of your life. Right?
Which is something we also are still in the path of finding.
Yeah, we're still learning. We're even still learning from each other. Um, and who knows? Maybe we can get more and more onto marital subjects as well, and share more of our experiences with each other and how it is that we've developed throughout our 10 years. Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next time. Shalom.
Have a good one.